A studio that went 7 years without releasing a single project and came dangerously close to shutting down ended up releasing a debut title that sold over 1 million copies in just the first 10 days. Yes, we're talking about the creators behind Dispatch, AdHoc Studio. But why did it take 7 years to develop the game? And how did they go from working at Ubisoft to releasing a Game of the Year contender? It all started at Telltale Games, a studio known for its story-driven, choice-based titles. But in the early 2010s, after the success of The Walking Dead, the studio shifted to a model that ultimately proven unsustainable. Telltale aggressively acquired licenses for Game of Thrones, Minecraft, Guardian of the Galaxy, Batman, and more. The financial side didn't pan out as they hoped. To recover cost in 2016 alone, they pushed out 4 different games and production only kept accelerating. This led to a terrible working environment. Developers reported working up to 18 hours a day trying to keep up with the relentless release schedule. Telltale Games also started expanding rapidly, hiring more employees to support its massive pipeline of games that they have scheduled. As things started to get worse with time, 3 key members who worked on some of Telltale's best produced games, Nick Harman, Pierre Choret, and Dennis Leonard, decided to leave the studio together at once. 3 of them then went on to join Ubisoft San Francisco, started working on a new Splinter Cell game. They also wanted to form their own studio within Ubisoft to have creative control and develop Splinter Cell, which Ubisoft rejected. In an interview with Bloomberg, they revealed how Ubisoft was pushing games as a service across its portfolio, and Splinter Cell didn't fit the idea. So over time, it transformed into a live service free-to-play first-person shooter, XDefiant, which was so bad that it didn't survive 1 year and the studio had to shut it down, alongside Ubisoft San Francisco and Ubisoft Osaka. After the failure of XDefiant, the trio reunited with a former employee of Telltale Games, Michael Chong, and founded AdHoc Studio in the early 2018. At the end of the same year, Telltale Games shut down with no prior notice to employees, and they laid off around 250 employees with 30-minute notice. The affected workers received no severance pay or extended healthcare benefits, prompting a class action lawsuit for violating labor laws. A skeleton crew of 25 staff was initially retained to complete outstanding contractual obligations. Few months later, the studio started liquidating its assets, with many licenses reverted back to original license holders. Some of Telltale's older games based on licensed properties such as Back to the Future and Jurassic Park were pulled from digital storefronts like Steam, either due to contract expiration or not renewing the licenses. One major question was whether fans would ever get to play the final season of The Walking Dead. Fortunately, Skybound Entertainment, led by creator Robert Kirkman, acquired the rights and hired former Telltale staff to finish the remaining episodes. Eventually, Telltale's brand, assets, and original IPs were purchased by LCG Entertainment, who wanted to revive Telltale's style and produce The Wolf Among Us 2. AdHoc Studio at the time started working on the early production of an interactive live-action project, a superhero office comedy inspired by Black Mirror Bandersnatch. They even wanted to set up an office to save on filming cost. The idea was kind of like game developers making a TV show. But as they were working on it, LCG Entertainment knocked on their door, offering them to join in and help them with the sequel of The Wolf Among Us. AdHoc Studio accepted the offer as it would financially help them to continue work on their first project. But as AdHoc Studio was about to start the production of their live-action project, COVID pandemic hit the world, which completely shut down TV and film production, and because of that, the studio had to shut down the entire Dispatch project. So they moved on their focus completely on developing The Wolf Among Us 2, which was announced in 2019 during the Game Awards. AdHoc Studio was in charge of narrative and cinematic elements, while Telltale was on implementing the gameplay and other designs. According to AdHoc Studio, they wrote 800-page scripts, prototypes, and filmed cutscenes for the game, but in 2023 the game was delayed, with many thinking it got cancelled. While AdHoc Studio said that they have done their part as it was a partnership work and they didn't have any control over anything else. After The Wolf Among Us, AdHoc Studio then worked few months on another brand new game idea before scrapping it and slowly started revisiting the shelved TV show project. They took the narrative of the project and reworked it into what we know now as Dispatch. They decided to scrap the live action part and focus completely on narrative driven games that they know best. But they needed funding, so the idea of making Dispatch into an animated game was the selling point, and they founded a publisher who stuck with them for a year or so before bailing out. The industry investors told them that the narrative-driven games like Dispatch don't sell, and especially post-pandemic when studios were closing left, right and center and no one wants to invest in a studio with zero track records. But they had a secret weapon, their casting director, Linda Lemongtag, who worked on many renowned projects like Invincible, Family Guy, and BoJack Horseman, an animated series that featured Aaron Paul voicing one of the characters. Linda was able to connect Aaron Paul to AdHoc Studio, and after listening to the script, he absolutely loved the idea and got on board. They were able to also get Jeffrey Wright and Laura Bailey alongside two of YouTube's best, Moist Critical and Jacksepticeye. But the studio was in desperate need of funding to be able to finish the game, so they put out a trailer in the Game Awards 2024 with Aaron Paul and Laura Bailey starring the game. But behind the scenes, Harman and his team was scrambling. I was running around at the Game Awards, talking with potential people who were going to try to bail us out, he said. At this point, AdHoc Studio had around 30 people who all needed to get paid. The founders of the studio didn't take any paycheck for about 6 months. With money drying out with few options in hand, Harman said that they came across a bad deal, which probably means that we're gonna close the studio after Dispatch releases. Most of my career has only been focused on creative, staying up late every night thinking about how I can make the game better. Now you're spending that time thinking, I know X weeks until the studio is out of money. It's a thing you don't wish on anyone. At the desperate times, Critical Role, the company co-founded by Bailey, best known for its popular Dungeons & Dragons videos, came for help. They wanted to make a deal with AdHoc Studio, where they would develop and publish a video game set in the world of Exandria, and in return, they will fund them to finish Dispatch. The collaboration also involves Critical Role assisting with brand development for Dispatch, including merchandise and tabletop content. With the financial help, AdHoc Studio was finally able to finish Dispatch and release it. The game was received well both by critics and fans, making it one of the best video games released this year. With the game selling out 1 million copies within 10 days, as the studio says, it's on the way to break their 3-year sales goal in 3 months. With the release, the studio finally found the financial stability that they were looking for throughout the 7 years of their journey. 2025 has been absolutely amazing year for gaming. We received few beautiful games from indie studios that had incredible story of their own journey, from Expedition 33, Silk Song, and now Dispatch from AdHoc sealed the year with indie studios providing the best quality titles of the year. Dispatch went a lot through the years. The idea changed, it got cancelled, revived, but at the end it had one thing that mattered the most, which is the narrative. They knew they had something, the idea stick around, and through thick and thin they made it.